The neighborhood of Eastwood Ridge was quiet, the kind of quiet where you could hear a leaf drop from a tree or the distant hum of a lawnmower. I had just moved into this suburb 3 months ago. I'm James Bradley, 34 years old, and I work remotely as a software engineer. For me, finding a place with reliable, high-speed internet was non-negotiable. When I came across a charming 3-bedroom house with fiber-optic connections already installed, I knew I had found my sanctuary. Little did I know, my new sanctuary would come with a surprise: the Hendersons. The Hendersons weren't the most welcoming neighbors. 2 weeks after I moved in, they showed up. Margaret Henderson, mid-50s with platinum blonde hair that looked like it came from a bottle and was probably touched up a bit too often, came by with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She gave me a once-over, as if trying to assess whether I was the kind of person who truly belonged in this neighborhood. Her questions were sharp, probing. "How much did you pay for this place?" she asked. "Must be a pretty good job to afford a house like that, huh?" Before I could even respond, her son, Blake, came sauntering out of the house, his gaming headset still hanging around his neck like some sort of crown, his eyes hidden behind a pair of dark sunglasses inside. At 20 years old, Blake had somehow mastered the art of being lazy without a shred of self-awareness. He didn't work, had no plans, and spent his days gaming, throwing tantrums at the slightest inconvenience. At first, I tried to be understanding. I'd heard about entitled neighbors before, but surely I could live peacefully here. That peace didn't last long. It started with the noise every night. Blake was up screaming, throwing his controller at the wall, shouting racial slurs at his online opponents. I could hear every word through the shared wall that connected our homes. After trying to ignore it for a while, I finally knocked on their door. Margaret opened it, all smiles at first, but when I brought up the noise, her whole demeanor changed, like flipping a switch. "Excuse me? My Blake is just having fun. Maybe if you weren't home all day, you wouldn't be bothered," she snapped. "Don't you have a job to go to?" I stood there, blinking for a second. "I do work from home, yes," I said, doing my best to remain calm. But that was all it took. The condescending tone, the assumptions. I knew I had to do something. I thought maybe if I kept my distance, things would settle. But I was wrong. The real breaking point came during my first big presentation for a new client. I had a video conference with 3 major companies to discuss a new software product. It was a huge opportunity, one I'd been preparing for weeks. Right when I was about to impress them with the final pitch, Blake decided to have one of his legendary meltdowns. His racial epithets, screaming, and the sounds of furniture crashing echoed through the wall during the call. One of the executives actually asked, "Are you in a safe environment?" That was the moment I realized I couldn't just let it slide. I'd lost a 6-figure deal, and I couldn't let the Hendersons keep treating me like this. No, now it was personal. I didn't react right away, though. Instead, I spent the next week quietly observing, researching everything about the neighborhood's internet setup, local laws, and any other information that might give me leverage. I wasn't just going to fight back, I was going to outsmart them. My background in network security helped. I discovered that the internet connection for our entire block shared the same trunk line, which meant that one house could significantly impact the bandwidth for everyone else. And that's when the gears started turning. I began documenting every time Blake's behavior or affected my internet, every time they violated noise ordinances, and even the things Margaret would say when she thought I wasn't listening, her racist comments, her judgmental glares. I also learned that the Hendersons were using a top-tier internet package, supposedly for Blake's gaming career, which I soon realized was nothing but a scam. They were paying $200 a month for premium internet service, yet their equipment was outdated and inefficient. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Blake was consuming all their bandwidth, downloading massive game files, and streaming on multiple devices, and neither of them had a clue how to optimize their connection. Meanwhile, I was in the process of installing state-of-the-art equipment in my own home, enterprise-level routers, fiber optic lines, and a network management system that could optimize internet traffic for the entire block. It wasn't just about getting better internet for me. I was about to make sure they couldn't continue exploiting their position. And that's when the fun began. I'd made sure everything was in place. The new system I'd installed was running at full capacity, and it allowed me to prioritize my connection while leaving theirs in the dust. Blake started noticing issues with his gaming setup. His connection was dropping constantly during his late-night streams. His downloads were slow, his matches kept lagging. I'll admit, I couldn't help but smile as I heard his furious rants through the walls. What is going on with this connection? I'm paying for the best service. Why am I losing every game? Margaret, of course, assumed it was my fault. She marched over to my house, demanding I fix the internet because her son was losing his career. I opened the door with my best poker face. Margaret, I'm sorry to hear you're having trouble. Have you tried contacting your internet service provider? Sometimes, older routers struggle with newer technology. She scoffed. We're paying for the best. Don't you dare tell me it's my equipment. This is on you. Your fancy tech setup is messing with our service. I couldn't help but grin internally. Actually, I said calmly, when fiber optics are properly configured, they improve overall performance for everyone. I'd be happy to help Blake optimize his network settings if he needs assistance. Of course, Blake refused help, and that was exactly what I wanted. The more stubborn he was, the worse his connection would get. I wasn't just messing with their internet. I had a plan in motion to make sure Margaret's racist attitude, her entitled behavior, and Blake's laziness caught up with them. I started networking with other neighbors, collecting stories about Margaret's behavior, and gathering evidence of her discriminatory actions in the community. I also started putting together a legal case. Margaret was violating HOA regulations, noise ordinances, and public decency laws, and I had it all documented. Then, I decided to hit them where it hurt most professionally. Margaret worked part-time at a local real estate office. She'd been making racist comments to clients, steering minority buyers away from certain neighborhoods, all while trying to present herself as a respected member of the community. It was time for her to learn that actions have consequences. I collected more evidence, recorded her discriminatory comments, and prepared a comprehensive complaint package. I didn't just want her to lose her job. I wanted her to face real consequences for her behavior. I submitted the complaint to her employer, the State Real Estate Commission, and even a local fair housing organization. 2 days later, Margaret was called into her boss's office. The company quickly placed her on leave pending an investigation. Her reputation was shredded. She lost her job. But that was just the beginning. Blake's gaming career hit a wall. With his internet connection struggling and his reputation as an entitled brat spreading, his streams couldn't even get enough viewers to maintain any kind of steady revenue. Margaret's unemployment benefits didn't even come close to covering their bills, and their premium internet package became an impossible luxury. As the Hendersons' financial situation crumbled, they began trying desperate measures to get by. Margaret started selling her personal items. Her once prized handbags, electronics, and furniture. Everything was put up for sale online. But it wasn't enough. They couldn't even keep up with their HOA fees. I watched it all from my office window, knowing exactly where this was headed. Margaret's pride kept her from selling the house, but when she couldn't pay the bills anymore, she had no choice. She decided to sell the house herself. I knew it was only a matter of time before she would be begging me to buy it. And so, I made her an offer, one that was so low it would have been insulting if she wasn't so desperate. When Margaret realized I was serious, she tried to backtrack. But the deal was done. I had successfully become her landlord. Now, Margaret's fall from grace was complete. Her racism and entitlement had cost her everything. She had no job, no support, and no dignity left. She tried to blame me, but in the end, Her downfall was entirely her own doing. I watched as she desperately tried to salvage what little was left of her reputation, but the neighborhood had already turned against her. Neighbors shared their stories, recorded her racist comments, and filed formal complaints. And in the end, I had the last laugh. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about accountability. It's about standing up to people who think they can get away with anything because of their privy leg. And, at the end of the day, it's about knowing that sometimes life has a way of making people face the consequences of their actions, whether they want to or not. What do you think? Was my revenge justified? What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.